Hey everybody, how do we make Prairie Wolf dry gin? You're about to find out. Hi everybody, I'm Jeffrey Cole, head distiller here at Wonderful Spirits. Today I'm sitting right in front of our Christian Carl still made in Germany. It can do many things, but today I'm gonna make our dry gin with it. So our gin recipe, it originates in London. These London dry gins were inspired by their predecessor, which was known as Holland's gin at the time. Today we call it Genever or Dutch Genever. But really it all hinges upon this ingredient right here, juniper berries. A lot of folks think they don't like gin because they don't like the flavor of juniper berries, but I challenge you to try a juniper berry. They're quite sweet. They aren't as nearly as resinous or piney as I think a lot of folks think, but they're more citrusy to me. They tend to taste fresh. And of course, you can't have gin without juniper. And we've also got to talk about coriander. Coriander seed, of course, comes from the cilantro plant. But don't worry if you're cilantro averse, as I am. It actually has no bearing on whether or not you like coriander, which actually tastes more like fruity pebbles. So why choose Prairie Wolf Dry Gin? Well, I can give you a few reasons. Number one, it's made right here in Oklahoma. It's made with true botanicals, actual botanicals, no artificial flavor or anything. The money obviously stays in Oklahoma, and it's a relatively affordable product. I would say the last thing is, it's made in incredibly small batches. You can come here and see it being made. And I wasn't self-taught. I was professionally trained by an actual gin master distiller with decades in the industry making actual dry gin in London. So I think that's a great reason to support an Oklahoma company. The first decision that we have to make is what botanicals to use. Juniper, of course, coriander, cardamom, angelica root as a fixative, and licorice. We want to make sure that the juniper we get is of a very high quality. We actually order ours from Tuscany, Italy. And you can see here I'm checking the moisture content to ensure that we have a good amount of flavor, that the juniper is still fresh, and then it's going to make a good tasting juniper essential oil. And then of course next we have coriander. Coriander, like 99% of the time you'll see in a gin recipe playing backup singer to juniper. It adds in a nice citrusy note. Of course it has those like childhood fruity pebble sort of smells. It's a low moisture content seed, so as you can see here, we use a coffee grinder to grind it up to get all of that citrusy and fruity smell out of it that we need for our gin. And the third most important ingredient is angelica root. As you can see here, it's chopped up. This acts as a fixative. It's very, very popular for holding those flavors together and keeping them fresh for years to come. So building upon those first three ingredients, we have some free reign. We can kind of buck tradition or stay traditional, and I chose with this gin to stay fairly traditional. We don't use any citrus peel. I think the coriander does a pretty good job with citrus. However, I do use this fun little seed. It's called cardamom. If you've not played with cardamom in your kitchen, it's very sort of like, it has a menthol flavor to it. We call it camphor. When it mixes with the other ingredients, it almost makes a candy-like aroma, which I really enjoy. And the last root that we use, this licorice root, it's very interesting. It's one of the only botanicals that you actually will get sweetness from as a sort of a pass-through characteristic after distillation. So it sort of rounds out the gin, it calms it down because, obviously you have warm flavors with just the alcohol and the juniper, but the licorice really adds a lot of, I think, balance. And here we have our hybrid gin still. It's made in Germany, affectionately known as Carl. This is a 135 liter still. You can see inside the pot here, that's where we'll add our liquid, and then there's the column where the vapor passes through the line arm into the gin basket, and then up to the condenser, and then out of the parrot head where we collect the raw spirit. And to give you kind of a close-up of the gin basket, this is where the botanicals go, or at least some of them. The alcohol and water vapor pass through this line arm up through the bottom of the gin basket where the botanicals are held, stripping flavor out and then condensing with the rest of the spirit. And so the first three botanicals we're going to process are the juniper and the two roots, angelica and licorice. They all get crushed and they'll be added to the pot to steep with a mixture of 50% ethanol and 50% water for about 24 hours. In this container, you can see the juniper, the licorice, and the angelica have been crushed up into pretty small pieces to extract the most amount of flavor. And here you can see I've got the botanicals wrapped up in some cheesecloth to make a little bag. It goes right into the pot into 100% grain neutral spirit or ethanol, and it rests just like this for about 24 hours to get a nice infusion of flavor. All right, the last two botanicals, the coriander and the cardamom, are going to go in the vapor path in what's called a gin basket. Those are processed separately. And you can see here the coriander and cardamom are ground up really finely. These are going in the vapor path, so I want as much surface area as possible. All right, now this step is one of the more complicated steps to explain, but this is a gin basket going into this cylinder, which is also known as the gin basket. It just rests down there at the bottom. I'm gonna reach down and grab the coriander and cardamom and pour that right into the basket. And this actually has a dual basket setup, so another basket will sit on top of this botanical basket. And I load that with some extra copper piping pieces. It's 30 feet of copper tubing actually that we cut up. I like to add a little bit of extra copper where I can. It just helps to knock down some of those sulfur flavors you get from raw ingredients. You just spread that out nice and evenly there, and that's it. We're gonna lock this baby up. All right, so the next step is the most exciting, right? So I'm gonna go turn the steam onto the still and let it heat up. I also have to add some water to that ethanol that's in the pot to make sure it's at a safe level of about 50% alcohol when the heat's turned on. And then it's just a waiting game. We'll let it heat up it takes about half an hour, and then we'll be rolling. So here it's been 24 hours since I started the maceration. I'm adding in some nice filtered water to it through that black hose. I come over here and I'll turn on the steam valves, get this thing warmed up, get ready to go. And our distillation is kicking off. You can see it's got a nice rolling boil in the pot, and the vapor is traveling quickly up the column, up through that's the line arm, traveling down to the bottom of the gin basket, up through our two botanicals, and then through the condenser where it recondenses into a liquid. And here we have the heads. This is where we're gonna make a cut. You can see I'm trying to analyze the distillate. We don't want any of the super sharp aromas that come off right at the beginning of the run. They tend to be just almost kind of hairspray smelling, not that great, but it doesn't take very long before you start getting into the nice hearts. And I'm trying to do this one-handed, so I'm trying to stick my hose on here and getting it all over myself, but typically a lot more graceful than this. But then, yeah, you'll see the distillate goes right into our receiving tank. And here I am over at Mac and Ike's, our next door bar, hanging out with Jacob. He's making a little gin and tonic with the Prairie Wolf gin. And yeah, next time you're thinking about having a cocktail, maybe think about having one with a local spirit made right up the street in Guthrie. Cheers.